You gotta watch out for a lot of things, man. Broken bottles, you know, used hypodermic needles, broken crack pipes, and you want to try and touch things as little as possible.
Mike Miller is giving one of New Orleans' least flattering, but most important tours. He's showing off some of the city's more than 43,000 blighted homes, one of the highest rates of blight in the country. As the director of supportive housing placement for the Greater New Orleans-based Unity organization, Miller spends his days and nights looking for what he refers to as people who are trimorbid, physically and mentally ill and substance abusers, which means searching in places most people would avoid.
Historically, you don't go into abandoned buildings. It's a safety issue. We came to the realization pretty early on that if we're going to do our job finding the sickest of the sick, we're going to need to cross that threshold.
Today, the sickest of the sick is a female client in her late 30s who's HIV positive, paranoid schizophrenic, and down to about 90 pounds. After a quick conversation, she's disappeared out the back of the house. Her bed is surrounded by a mixture of garbage and feces. And nature is creeping in as hornets nest in the light fixtures. While Miller continues on his tour, New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu is busy across town summing up the first year of his tenure.
When is the time to get serious about blight? And everywhere we went, you told us the time is now. Our aggressive blight reduction effort will eliminate 10,000 blighted properties over the next 3 years.
As part of his blight reduction campaign, Mayor Landrieu has set up a vacant property tracking system called Blighted, which updates the progress twice a month. One of the Greater New Orleans neighborhoods that is struggling the most with blight is the lower 9th Ward. Saturday morning, Bernard Lange is at the house he grew up in and raised his family in until Katrina hit.
Last few days I've been cutting down a lot. Since I'm back here now residing in the city working, but make sure I'm trying to keep this grass cut down low so I don't inquire any fines from the city and the house doesn't look like it's totally abandoned. I'm gonna probably start working renovating on it in August.
Lange is just back after 5 years in Texas. His wife and kids stayed behind so his son could finish high school there. Lange says his neighborhood is traditionally made up of homeowners. He says the fact that parts of it are returning to nature doesn't mean residents don't care. It means 6 years later, they're still down and out.
They got to realize a lot of people do not have the money. They're still forced to live out of town. Jobs are a little bit better here, but simply it's not what it used to be.
A few miles from Bernard Lange's house sits a classic double shotgun structure. It's considered blight, but in New Orleans, a blighted doesn't mean uninhabited. It's also one of Mike Miller's favorite stops on his tour. I'll let you. Bernard King comes out to greet Miller. The lower half of his body is kept together by a series of pins in his hips, legs, and feet, some of which are popping out, he says. Which means King doesn't get out much, except to go next door to visit with his neighbor.
I go see him and see how he's doing, you know what I mean, making sure he's all right. He's the only thing I have left, you know what I mean?
Are you doing anything?
His neighbor also happens to be his little brother, Mike, whose medical condition is far worse than Bernard's.
I'll never see you again. I'll never mention it again.
If you're at all squeamish, you might want to look away right now.
Up in there? Don't throw up now.
I'm not.
Okay.
King's massive infection started as a little spot, he says.
That's bone I'm walking on. I'm walking on number bone.
The King brothers can tell a story that's been told 1,000,000 times by now. They were flooded out of their home of 20 years by Katrina, survived a few weeks at the Superdome, and then they came back, despite the fact that the floorboards are about to cave in.
The wires is cut on the house. You have no water, you have no gas, so there's no way to keep yourself clean. And if your hygiene ain't, you know what I mean, if you can't got hot water to soak your foot, you know what I mean, it's gonna get infected. And my brother's foot is, you know what I mean, they don't cut it off.
Miller says while things are rough here at the King house, And in many of the other thousands of squats around New Orleans, humanity finds a way to prevail.
It's an intangible desire to live. And you'll still see, you see a guy who's about to get his leg cut off and he'll bullshit with you about crawfish.
Get me out of here. You know what I mean?
Miller heads a few blocks over from the Kings to check in on one of his most recent success stories. 2 weeks ago, out on his rounds, he came across a husband and wife huddled in a squat.
I mean, we pulled up, knocked on the door, didn't hear anything, knocked on the door a little bit more, announced ourselves, went in, and we're sitting on a little mattress in there.
2 weeks and tons of Mike Miller-assisted paperwork later, the couple now lives across the street in a rental unit. In a town that is known for drastic problems, some people, like Mike Miller, are starting to offer drastic solutions. And for Miller's part, he's not going to wait for locals who need help to find him. Bets are, with a pack of cigarettes, a cup of coffee, and a full tank of gas, he'll find them first.
I think I have the best job in the world. I absolutely believe it. And I get to help the sickest of the sick, and I get to see the results of it. And you keep an idea of the big picture, and you're helping your city get back.
For Time Video, I'm Jesse Hardman in New Orleans.